Welcome to our last presentation on stocks, and I promised that things were going to get a little lighter and less meaty, less heavy lifting, so to speak, and I'm going to deliver. Because in this presentation, we're going to take a look at the all-stars of investing. Because I've always believed if you want to do something well, find the people who are doing it, who have done it well, and learn from them. And of course, learn from the people who did it poorly not to do what they did. Okay, so let's start on slide 47 with Peter Lynch. Oh my goodness, you got to read One Up on Wall Street, please. It's so much fun. He was setting the world on fire back in the 1980s, and he's coming. I'm coming out with a book, yay! And the pundits were saying, oh, it's going to be a self-congratulatory piece of fluff about how wonderful he is. Nothing could be further from the truth. He, in very simple terms, lays out the reasons why you'd want to invest in stocks, maybe why you don't want to invest in stocks, and then goes through the processes that he used to identify individual stocks. He talked about his successes and he talked about his failures. And it's just so much fun to read because he's got this really dry, wry sense of humor. Very, very, very funny guy, in my humble opinion. I love dry humor. The other gentleman that we like to look at is Warren Buffett. Now, he's quoted in the media upside down, left side, right. Peter Lynch has sort of fallen out of the media's eye. I think he probably just wants to be left alone. But Warren Buffett is the leader of one of the biggest companies in the United States called Berkshire Hathaway. And it's really a holding company. It holds other companies. But still, it's very important, and a lot of people own stock in it. And so he's quoted quite a bit. Now, he has a wonderful saying. Don't buy a stock, buy a company. Remember I said, he said, if you would want to own the whole company, if you'd want to own Home Depot, if you could be the owner of Home Depot, which you can't because it's too big to buy, no one person could own it, go ahead and buy 10 shares, right? So you're part owner. He puts the emphasis on the value of the entire company using many of the techniques that he learned from his teacher, Benjamin Graham. And we talked about his book, The Intelligent Investor. But again, don't read the first book. Don't make that the first book to read, folks, because it's just, he talks in a very, very overly flowery way, and he kind of tries his best to scare you away from stocks. So we want you to know the good stuff about stocks, and then we also want you to know remember, stocks are risky. So don't read his book, the first book. But eventually, every good investor wants to read The Intelligent Investor. Every serious investor. And then there's another gentleman who was very famous, passed away, I think about almost 20 years ago. John Templeton, one of the first fund managers to invest globally. Sir John Templeton. He was knighted. Pretty good for a kid from Tennessee. Very, very good investor. Plus, he created a foundation to merge the idea of investing and productivity and raising the standard of living with spirituality and religion. So he was very much into that, and his foundation lives on. johntempleton.org, I think it is. I got to click on the link there. It'll get you there eventually. If it doesn't go first to Wikipedia, I think it goes first to Wikipedia. So here are 4 all-stars of investing. And then the 5th one is Bill Miller. Now, he's still around. I think he retired and then he came back. This gentleman had an unprecedented record. He beat the Standard & Poor's 500 15 years in a row. Well, he wasn't really happy about that. Because all of a sudden now people listen to every word he says, and it's like trying to do your work with a 10,000 watt spotlight on your back. Everybody's watching what you do. And he didn't like it. He didn't like all the attention he was getting. And then what happened? I mean, think about it. 15 years in a row. He was the first to point out that if it weren't January, if it was another month, it wouldn't have been 15 years. But still, it's still an unprecedented feat. It reminds me of the Tony Gwynn story where he won the batting championship 6 out of 7 years in a row. I mean, that's 6 out of 7 years. Nobody's going to do that. Again, the competition is just too fierce. Well, what happened? In 2006, he didn't beat the S&P 500. And then in 2007 and 8, he really did badly. during the Great Recession, during the global financial crisis. And before that, people would say, well, why don't you invest with Bill Miller? And I would say because he's too concentrated. He did not diversify as much as most mutual fund managers would diversify. And he was very upfront about it. He said, look, I want to have the best of the best. So he had about 40 stocks. Whereas a good mutual fund usually has at least 100, maybe 150 stocks. So you see, much more diversified. It works great if your companies are doing well, and it works very badly for you if your companies don't do well. So what happened is in 2009, he seemed to redeem himself, but then did really badly in 2010 and 11. So they let him retire in 2012. I was surprised that Legg Mason, his company, let him stay as long as they did. And then he came back, and now he's doing some other things. I think he got involved in crypto. I don't know, but it's a cautionary tale that the industry is very brutal, right? You do well. What have you done for me lately? You do well. You get lots of love and attention and money, but then people want you to keep doing well, and it's not easy to do. And then finally, we ask, what do all these people have in common? And the one thing you look at is their courage to not follow the crowd, to say, the conventional wisdom is not wise. And they have, and that's hard to do. As we said, some of them are, like Warren Buffett, are contrarians, right? Because they wait for everything to go bad and then they invest, and when everything is good, they sell their stuff. And they have what I like to call a sixth sense. They have an eye for unrecognized value. Everybody sees this. Look at that, look at that, look at that. They see something else. This is what investors are missing, for good or bad, right? We asked you about PepsiCo. Have you looked up PepsiCo and what that hidden asset is that they have? What snack food company do they own? So now we move to the world of chess. Garry Kasparov and Anatoly Karpov were the two best chess players in the world back in the late 1980s and then 1990s, and eventually Garry Kasparov was the undisputed champion, and then he went against a computer that was designed to beat him, and he lost. But now he's much involved in politics and is a very vocal opponent of Vladimir Putin, as we say, but it's actually Putin. But anyway, he was once asked, why are you and Anatoly Karpov the two best chess players in the world? And his answer was astonishingly simple and direct. We attack better than anybody else, and we defend better than anybody else. Yeah, they're the best, and it's not easy. You ever played chess? These people bought the best companies. They avoided the worst companies. So there's a little bit of offense here, right? You want to buy the best companies, and defense. You want to buy the worst companies. I feel if I use a sports analogy. Speaking of avoidance, as a mutual fund investor, which I mostly am, I have a few stocks, but no, I'm a mutual fund investor. I'm not looking to find the next Peter Lynch. Oh, no. I'm looking to avoid the next Charles Steadman. And you might say, who is Charles Steadman? And the reason he's virtually unknown is because he ran his own mutual fund. He named it after himself. Now, that's a bad sign right there. The Steadman American Industry Fund. From December 1959 until his death in late 1997, his cumulative total return was minus 42.9%. During one of the biggest expansions in the history of the world, this guy lost 43% of his money. He would have done much better simply placing it in a savings account at a bank or putting it under the mattress. I don't know. Maybe he came from the life insurance industry. So you see, we want to avoid the worst individuals and the worst companies and look for not necessarily the best, but good companies that have been around for a long time, have their roots deep in the economy. And, maybe buy one or two Netflix or other companies that are screaming higher until they crash and burn. But, a company like Waste Management. Huh? Who are they? Can you guess? They pick up the trash, right? In 50 years from now, are people going to be on Facebook or Twitter? I don't know, but I know somebody's going to pick up the trash, and one of the companies is probably going to be waste management. The other one is your public services. Cool. What do you think? Did you learn anything? Just piquing your interest for Introduction to Investments. Anyway, here is what Warren Buffett says. Now, he's basically channeling his teacher, Benjamin Graham. But he's famous for this quote. Be fearful when others are greedy. Be greedy when others are fearful. And that's a much better way of saying it. His mentor, Benjamin Graham, in The Intelligent Investor, said it this way. Buy when most people, including the experts, are overly pessimistic, and sell when they are actively optimistic. You see, they were contrarians. They went against the grain. Everybody's running this way. What do? They run the other way. Now, 100,000 years ago, 10,000 years ago, that was important. If everybody ran that way, you ran that way, because if you didn't, you got eaten by the tiger. But in the modern world, the modern financial world of investments, it's not a smart thing to do. Is it too late to get in? Yes. Is it too late to get out? Yes. Yeah. It sounds easy, doesn't it? Wait till you try it. Now, here's Sir John Templeton. Bear markets are born of pessimism. Grow on skepticism, mature on optimism, and die on euphoria. The time of maximum pessimism is the best time to buy. When there's blood in the streets. Now, did Sir John Templeton follow his own advice? Oh, yes, he did. Now, the story, a couple different versions of the story, but basically, it's 1981, December. You history buffs? Right. Pearl Harbor. The United States is dragged into World War II. We've been trying, at least many people, not the president at the time, but the rest of the country's been trying to stay out of it. And now we're dragged into it. What does John Templeton do? He tells his broker to buy whatever. I forget, there's a couple different versions of the story. But $1,000 of every company selling for less than $1, or bankrupt company, depending on which version of the story you hear, of every company on the New York Stock Exchange that's selling for less than $1 or is in bankruptcy. 4 years later, John Templeton is a very wealthy man. Blood in the streets, right? On a similar note, he also said, to buy when others are despondently selling and sell when others are avidly buying requires the greatest fortitude and pays the greatest reward. Yeah, it's not easy. And that's why we like dollar cost averaging, because we don't know when the best time to invest. We don't know when the worst time to invest. We want to invest every month with $50, $100. We're not John Templetons. We're not Warren Buffett's. We don't have millions of dollars to invest when there's blood in the streets. We invest slowly, prudently, wisely, patiently, with an eye toward long-term growth and income. And if the world doesn't end, we should do pretty darn well. No guarantees. Slide number 53. My last chance. The industry needs you, folks. And the industry is so huge. You know, most people think they have to become a stockbroker. And yeah, you might want to become a stockbroker, but that's like saying you want to get in the health industry, you have to be a doctor. Wrong. There's so many places for you. In insurance and in brokerages and mortgage broking and real estate finance and escrow and all types of insurance companies. And yeah, it's there. But credit unions, banks, I mean, it's there, folks. It's there for you. The industry needs you. They need more women. They need more bilingual. They love ex-military, minorities. Think about it. Now, if you want to be a stockbroker, usually you're going to start off as a broker's assistant, and with this class and the 120, especially the 123 class, maybe some workplace experience of Business 290, you can become an intern as or a broker's assistant, and then you're going to want to take the new exam. Before that, you had to take the Series 7. That's really difficult, folks, and you have to be sponsored, and it costs several $100s, and it's a lot of studying. 2 months I think 2 months of studying, 1 to 2 hours a day. I know somebody who passed it in 2 weeks, but that's all he did. For 2 weeks, he studied 8-9 hours a day. Eesh, I don't know, I would go nuts. But I took a couple of months to study, and I threw away I burned them, all my flashcards. That was so stupid. Why did I do that? I could have been giving them out to people. But anyway, it's a tough exam. And many companies don't want to hire you until they know you can pass it. So right now, what the industry does is they have this this other exam called the Securities Industries Essential Exam, the SIE exam. It's, I think, $70 or $65 or $80, and you don't have to be sponsored. If you pass this exam, the industry is going to come after you. They're going to say, hey, come on over here. We have this kind of program. We'll teach you this, because then they know you're going to pass the Series 7. And if you pass the Series 7, that's it. You're a broker. You don't have to have a 4-year degree. They're going to want you to get a 4-year degree, maybe even get your 2-year degree first. But if they like you, and if you produce, and if you show that you're worth your medal, as METTLE, they'll help you pay, or maybe even pay for your schooling. So think about it, folks. And again, ex-military, they love ex-military. Why is that? Well, it's because it's a very regulated industry. You got to be careful what you say, what you do. You can't be a flake. Folks, this is other people's money. And who better than people who've thrived in a very regulated, structured world of the military? Yeah, and people in the military are often very positive. They're looking forward. Not pessimistic, and it really does help to be positive in this industry. I think, I don't know. And the most important thing is your stick-to-itness. Do you not give up? Do you stick to it? Because sometimes it just seems like, oh man, oh no, this is not for me. It's not working. All of a sudden, bingo, you get a really good client, and the sky looks clear, and you think, where did that client come from? I don't know. It just came from all the hard work you had done to, the 27 people you asked, and they all said no, 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 and the 28th says, hey, come on by. Let's talk. But you don't have to be in the public eye. You don't have to be one of the frontline people who deal with the public. There is an entire back office, it's called back office compliance and transactions and marketing and all the other things that have to be done, IT. So think about it. The industry needs you. We need more women. We need more bilingual. We need more minorities, and we need ex-military. Okay, enough of the commercial. Slide 54. The bottom line in stocks. Thank you, by the way, thank you so much for going through these 4 presentations. And notice they got increasingly easier as you went through, and that there was a method to my madness. Stocks are the best long-term financial investment available, folks, bar none. And then people say, oh, no, he doesn't know what he's talking about. Do options. Wrong, 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 wrong. Leave the stock picking to the pros. In other words, find a good stock mutual fund, and we'll cover stock mutual funds, all mutual funds, in Chapter 14. As bullish as I might appear to be, and I am, my wife and I have 99% of our stock investments through high-quality mutual funds. I used to call it my Vegas fund, and it lived down to its name. Now I call it my Benjamin Graham fund, and it's done much better. I believe it is simply unrealistic to think I could do better than professionals armed with an entire global research team at their disposal. I mean, these mutual fund companies have people all around the world, because remember, the world is global. Coca-Cola, which is a United States company, makes 80% of their money outside the United States. That means if every United Stater stopped drinking Coca-Cola today, it would still be a very large company. But I sure love it when a pick I make does well. It's really a lot of fun. And then when the ones, you forget about the one. I used to talk about the ones that didn't do well, because you have to remember that there's going to be times that you're going to strike out, to use another sports analogy. But it's not like baseball. You're not going to whiff 7 times out of 10. I mean, if you get three hits out of 10, you're in the major leagues, you're making millions of dollars. No, you're going to do better than that, especially if you have your eyes wide open. Don't listen to the crowd. Learn how to use the valuation techniques that we teach in Business 123, and there are other valuation techniques and other models and other things that you can learn. It's a lifelong endeavor, and you're going to do well. If the world doesn't end. If the world ends, and then all bets are off, and it doesn't matter what your stock portfolio is like. Cool? Okay, so that was stocks. Exciting stocks, sexy stocks, risky stocks. And now we're ready to cover bonds. Boring bonds, stodgy bonds, reliable bonds. See you in our next chapter, dear students. Thank you so much for being in our class. It is a great joy and privilege to have you.